I'd love just to ask a little bit about how you kind of got involved in this project and what kind of your general reaction to One Battle After Another was at first. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the best working directors today, and he comes to you with this. What's kind of going through your mind when this project comes to you and you find out you're going to be doing the cinematography for this movie?
I mean, this is my fifth movie with Paul, and so we kind of got a good working relationship, and one that, you know, he started talking to me about this thing, just very, very, not even specifically about. He didn't really have the script finished, but he just started. We were talking a lot about different things that were going on in the world and things like that, and so it was clear that he was kind of using a bit of this stuff as just kind of the seeds for whatever he was doing on the movie. And so that when he finally did have the script, he gave me an early draft, and it was like, um, you know, hey, this is what I want to do next. It's a very different type of movie for me as far as the scale, especially because we'd obviously done Licorice Pizza and I'd done Phantom Thread. These are more like, they weren't such big ensemble pieces and such scale and scope. And so it's clear that this was like something that was like, in my first read, I was like, wow, okay, this is a very, very, very different type of film. And so I was excited about the whole thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. That kind of jumps right into what I wanted to ask you next, because obviously you have worked together with Paul a lot, most recently on Licorice Pizza. Does already having that kind of working relationship like make it easier for your job as a cinematographer on One Battle? Like, how does that collaboration work with the two of you when you're on set? And what do you kind of feel like you've learned from each other over these years?
I think what's great is when you have a long working relationship with somebody, you have shorthand, you have a lot of references, like and on a One Battle, even though it was a bigger movie, we had a very aggressive schedule. We were in so many different cities and so many different characters and things. So that was really a challenge. But, what helps a lot is us being able to have a quick dialogue and just reference, even if it's references from some of his other movies that we've worked together. Like the scene where uh Tayana and Lockjaw finally hook up in the hotel. And, we had shot that one way, and he was like, I think we should, try something different. And I was like, what if we shot it kind of like how we did Barbara Rose in Phantom Thread? And that was the scene where she's passed out in the movie on Phantom Thread. She's passed out on the bed, and Alma comes in and gets the dress off of her. And we had this kind of light that we were lighting from a different room onto a back wall. And I said, why don't we try something like that? And he was like, absolutely. Like I could use that kind of a reference. And that just saved a bunch of stuff. And so then I was like, let's just get a light in here. Da, 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 da. We got the scene lit in like 10 minutes, and the actors could go back to work, just go in there and do a version. That's the version you put in the film. And so it's that kind of like dialogue that we have where we can just be like, hey, I'm thinking like this. Well, what if we did this or this? And you can kind of have those kind of conversations. And we've got just a long time of working together, which is super helpful.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes total sense. And there's a couple of, I mean, I love this whole movie, but there's a couple of specific scenes I kind of want to ask you about just because I love them so much. One of them, I'm
Sure.
sure you've talked about it a lot, but the third act, the whole car chase is just
Yeah.
breathtaking with the hills and everything. I was rewatching the movie earlier this week with a couple of people who've never seen it, and just to kind of be able to see the reaction from them, like, whoa, like, yeah,
Sure.
it's so much fun. So how did you kind of go about crafting that? Like, at what point during the process of making One Battle did you kind of know that the ending to the movie was going to look like that?
Yeah, I think it started because that location we didn't have at the beginning of the film when we were doing all the prep. It came about when Michael Glazier found that location when he was driving to look for the 1776 location, which is where Willa gets dropped off by the bounty hunter. And and then she jumps in the car from there and drives off. And on his way there in that particular part of California, he found these hills, and he and Flo, the production designer, kind of looked at it, and then they were like, we should really bring everybody, so then we all did a little scout there, and that's kind of how it developed. And it was really like, as we started to look at it first through iPhones and then through like camera placements, it was like, wow, this is really going to be quite something. And then when we were shooting it, we were just using, camera cars and other like really tools that allowed us to go get the camera as low as possible, as safe as possible, and as fast as possible.
Yeah,
And that combination was really when we started to discover, just what the potential of that was.
sure. Yeah. And again, it just turned out so good. It's every time I watch it, that's always my favorite part. Just
No, that's
the whole
great.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another sequence in here that I absolutely love is everything that happens in Sensei's apartment, but especially like all the stuff on the roof when we're following the
Yeah.
skateboarders like jumping back and forth. The visuals are just so striking. Just the fact that it's all at night and a lot of it's silhouettes, but you can so clearly see it. Was that kind of challenging, like working on that with the lighting and all the action that's taking place?
I think it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, we tried to get the shot where he comes off of the roof for the first time. We tried to shoot that at dusk, and which so we could have. We got lucky in the day that we shot it. There was a storm coming, so there was this really great cloud formation that was going on at dusk. And so when Leo climbs up the hatch and he starts to climb over the skateboard, as he climbs over that first roof, you see like this very dynamic operatic sky. And then one of the things was we were shooting in all that sequence in uh, El Paso, and right next to El Paso is Juarez, Mexico. And one of the things we wanted to do was to shoot as wide open on the lens as possible, so we could see as much of the actual lights of Juarez and use that as a background piece too, which gave this like level of depth to the whole thing, which was kind of interesting. It was just and then when they finally do run before they fall into the tree, that was all against everything that was going on, creating this riot sequence down in the street below. So there's smoke, there's flame, there's all sorts of colors going on. And it became clear that it wasn't you didn't really need to light any of their faces because there's so much going on. And these guys the team had such a unique look to them, the skateboarders with their hair and everything, and obviously Leo's character with his look, that it was like you could just get a few beats of where you're seeing their face, and the rest of it is just kind of embrace the amazing stuff that was happening with the silhouettes and that kind of energy. And that was kind of where it happened. And it was really just a lot of planning with the set decoration department and Justin the gaffer, and where we're putting lights and having cop cars and things going on. That's kind of what the combination was.
Sure, sure, definitely. Big fan of the skateboarders. I love those guys so
Love
much.
those dudes, man. They killed it.
Yeah. So kind of throughout the whole movie, I'm curious if there was like any single moment that was like especially challenging, just because I'm guessing this movie is so big and so epic, and there's got to be a lot of stuff that you've never tackled before. Can there be like, is there one specific like moment you can point to that's like we had no idea how we were going to pull this off, and then you did manage to pull it off?
That's like half the movie. It's like there's a lot of stuff that because Paul shoots practical locations.
Mhm.
There's very little of this movie was shot on a stage. The only things that was staged was the tunnel when he's crawling through, and the Christmas Adventures office, where they sit around the table. And so the rest of it is really all practical. So every time you're in a practical location, it's good and bad. And so, like when we were shooting Bob's house at the beginning, where he and Will are sitting around the table, that was a very, very like maybe an incredibly small house. It was the size of a small apartment, but it was pouring rain outside. So we're trying to have it look like soft, warm light coming through. And meanwhile, you open the front door and it's absolutely dumping because we're up in Eureka,
Yeah,
in the northern part of California, and that was really tough. Look, there's so many moments of like uh just we were always trying to catch the chaos of the moment of and letting the spontaneity happen. That was really critical to kind of the energy of the film. And so you just had to kind of go in there a lot of times with like, okay, here's the plan, and here's the second plan, and here's the third plan. And, between all the plans, something's going to happen. And, I mean, the other thing is with Paul, he's not afraid to come back and reshoot something if it's not right.
sure.
He's going to get it right. And so sometimes that road can get a little crazy. But there was always moments that I was like, oh my God, is this even going to work? And then and 2 days later when you'd see dailies, you'd be like, okay, cool. Yeah, we got it.